My name is Aryah Lester. I am the Deputy Director of the Transgender Strategy Center. I'm currently living in Washington, D.C., and I am a Black woman of trans experience. Born in New York, lived some time in Florida as well, and opened up the first transgender organization for Miami-Dade County, and currently just offer capacity building, technical assistance, leadership development, corporate education, and diversity and inclusion practices for trans-led organizations and organizations with some type of commitment for teaching C communities. My life has been a struggle, which is typical of a lot of transgender women, especially those who are Black and brown, but even more specifically for Black women of trans experience. And throughout my career trajectory, I've been fired from being trans. I've been denied my full salary for being trans. Um, and I had many periods of homelessness and unemployment and homelessness and unemployment between opportunities in which I built up my network and my skill sets and my education. And I met Maureen Riordan, who is the founding director of the Transgender Strategy Center, about 3 or 4 years ago at a training that we were giving an AIDS service organization in Birmingham, Alabama, here in the United States. And Maureen asked me to join this new organization that he was building that was made up of trans smarties, trans individuals and gender nonconforming individuals who have skill sets, who have education, who are able to really inject their skills within the community and build that out into an organization made for and by trans people. And he asked if I wanted to join. I did. And eventually they created a deputy director position for me. Even though as deputy director, Maureen and I hold equal power within the organization, because one of the things that TSC, or the Transgender Strategy Center, has as a principle is equity, especially when it comes to those who are most marginalized. And for us, we see it as Black women of trans experience. So we try to uplift and create equitable practices within our organization for that. Amazing what keeps me up at night, because it breaks down the simplicity of humanity is what really keeps me up. That every day as a trans person, I have to continuously prove my existence, actually fight for my humanity, for my human rights, for all those things that every person, as soon as they are born into this plane, are supposed to have. I'm fighting for it. And so many of those who look like me and have lived lives like me, are going through the same thing. And it's not even just a trans thing. When you look at immigrants, or when you're looking at people with disabilities, or mental health, and it's just, we're like 2020, we're now millennia into human generations and generations, and we're still trying to prove that a human is due respect for just being here and being alive. And that's what kind of keeps me up at night. But I try not to let that keep me from furthering the education, from blasting the clouds of ignorance, and really shining a positive visibility for us and other marginalized people. Well, you have to build your garden around you in order to really fortify yourself for whatever adversity comes from external sources. And building that garden, it's trusted individuals. They may not be your blood family, they may be chosen family. Um, Kind of splintering out your needs into different support systems, it's something that helps me. And I think that as humans, we are social creatures. And so a lot of what we need to feel centered in our humanity is other support networks and other individuals. And I've been blessed, even through those darkest times that I've went through, that I still have the same friends that held me down, that gave what they were able to and supported me in 100% in every way that I wanted to go, and realizing and believing in me and having that belief that whatever I'm going through does not define me, and it's the end result that defines you of what you leave with the world. And so that's what I would say to that. Trans Justice Funding Project is a fund that funded Trans Miami with my start in Florida for many years. And their definition of what translate means is something that I feel that all philanthropic organizations should follow, because a lot of our monies are all being funneled through larger LGBT arms that don't actually, when once it trickles down, it's like 1 cent on every dollar that actually goes to trans specific programming. And so, what we wanted to do when COVID broke, and our people would just, that trans people already have so limited resources, and then when you put something, a systemic pandemic on top of that, it just makes it difficult for people to breathe, to live, to survive. And so we talk with some of the funders that we have relationships with, and thankfully AIDS United, Levi Strauss, Amazon, and also Gilead Pharmaceuticals all decided to pitch in, and we raised almost $500,000. And what we wanted to do was take that definition that the Trans Justice Funding Project had, but also add on to it to be specifically for Black and Brown communities. Because when we saw the data coming in from coronavirus, we saw that Black and Brown people were getting sick more than their counterparts, were dying more. And this isn't just like a target of coronavirus, it's a effect, a residual effect of the systems that we have that's not built for us here. And so we raise the money to give out to trans-led organizations to disseminate or use for operating funds for Black and Brown communities across the nation to help with those that are dealing with HIV or coronavirus or loss of income or any host of things that trans people on the daily deal with, but just deal with a lot more throughout 2020. When it comes to the fight for equality and equity, I think the LGB has kind of gotten more success than the trans community with marriage equality, with a lot of our cultural norms being shifted. We see a lot of positive media representation. You see a lot of gender nonconformity in fashion now. You see it being implemented within this phase that it's being integrated into people's homes and houses, and people are fine with it. Not everyone is, of course, but it's becoming more of the norm. Whereas trans people are still, in many places, seen to be like an abomination or a circus performer, or just an entertainer, or someone to laugh at, or someone to make fun of. And we're not seen with that value that we should be seen at. And in that status quo, I think that we're really far behind. We're still proving our humanity, much less, having people be educated as to why we're suffering the way that we are, why we're continuously being killed and murdered, and why we're engaging in sex work. It's not because of just a choice that trans people make, it's because of how the system is built against us. think of like big name people that inspire me. The first that had inspired me was Mariah Carey, which is where I kind of get my name from too, at least the pronunciation of it, which is Aryah. Um, she's just, I think strong female figures are what really call out to me, those who take charge of their lives as their business and become their own boss of their life. In that sense, when I'm looking at Black trans women or Black women of trans experience, Janet Mock and Angelica Ross, Angelica being my mentor, are two people that I really look up to and really inspire me. But I get more inspiration from my mentees, people in the community that I'm still connected to, that I'm helping to build up their skill set, to learn how to navigate grant applications, or learning how to write a 3-page proposal, or how to cite your research, and the growth that I've seen these individuals have just shows the tenacity, the intellectualism, and the survival instinct of the trans community is something that inspires me on a daily basis. The next generation just have no F's to give. Like they have they've came into a world to where we did a lot of the blood, sweat, and tears to have our younger generation be able to come out at earlier ages, to be able to kind of bend the gender rules and the gender norms, be they trans or cis or not, just the kids in general are really adopting more of an individualism. And I think that that individualism is something that really makes me happy, because the compartmentalized kind of ways that we have been putting people and subjecting them into these groups, the youth of our time are breaking free of that. They don't want to be defined by anything, as you see with non-binary and gender non-conforming and genderqueer identities coming out, and pansexualism, and there's just so many other ways of just expanding what it means to be human, and expanding it to the point to where you can't pinpoint one thing that makes someone human, because if a person exists, that's all it takes. November 20th has been Transgender Day of Remembrance, from a fallen sister in 1998, I believe. And that was the one recognition that we had as trans people. And I remember, like, it was like, wow, like, just to have a day on a calendar that says transgender, like, where are we living at? And nowadays you see President Biden was the first, President-elect Biden, that is, was the first president-elect to mentioned the term transgender in his acceptance speech. And then recently he sent out a tweet with his, and sent out through his office his affirmations that he will uplift the needs of trans individuals. And so with that, I see that there's been an escalation of how visible our needs are, from Transgender Day of Remembrance to Transgender Week of Transgender Awareness Week, to now Transgender Awareness Month, to where we have a full month of events and awareness and education, and that makes me happy. Transgender, I remember, was a name that not even I was familiar with at a point in time. And nowadays it's becoming more of a common term, and people are more aware of it, even though they may not be as fully engrossed with the intricacies of it. It's at least being a lot more known, so that it can give us that wedge, that little chance to just pushing our humanity, within the minds and hearts of everyone around the world. Everyone just wants to be seen. They just want to live their lives, and they just want to, have positive pleasures that positively affect both them and those that they love and that they're around, and that's all we want. And so um, that's what I'm looking forward to. And as I said a year ago, I think that we'll reach full equity and equality when trans people can just die of natural causes in old age and not have the life expectancy of 35, 36 that we see now for Black trans women.